Right now I'm in the shop, but if I go to info, I go to the new menu, and I also get the current version of the game set in here automatically. I can go to the options menu, I can change the language, change the audio, and if I press the same button again, I go back to the shop, and it all works nicely, and it doesn't mess up with the shop pages or anything. Perfect. Hi, I'm Ricky. Today we're on the 22nd episode of the Endless Runner series, and in this episode we'll take a look on how to implement switchable menus to our game. Being able to swap from one menu to another is at the base of every user interface system. It's a very simple thing to do and implement, but it's also very essential. We start by reorganizing a bit of the UI and making the info menu. Then we see how to change the text to make it so that it displays the current version of our game. Then we make the logic behind it, so we'll make a very simple script to switch from one menu to another. And finally, we'll make the options menu, in which we'll put the switch language button and the toggle audio button. This series is based on a video game that I've already made and published called BoatVenture. If you want to know how this finished product will look like, do check it out, link in the description. It's free for all Android devices 9+ on the Play Store. Alright, so let's start. Let's go in the canvas, let's go in our shop panel, and in here, as you can see, we have some pages around laid out randomly. What I want to do is group them all together inside that empty game object. So let's create a new empty game object in the shop panel. Let's stretch it to all corners. Remember, you can press Alt to automatically set to all 4 corners. And only then let's put the pages inside of it. Now let's make a second empty game object. Same exact process. And in here, we're going to put all the infos to our game. So first, let's disable the shop menu. And now in this new info menu, I'm just going to put 3 texts. Alright, so that's the main idea of the info menu. Not very pretty, but it doesn't matter right now. I'm also gonna hide the add page button, since it was just for debugging for an earlier episode. Now, before we go any further into making our menu, let's make the script that changes this text to display the current version of our game. I'm gonna take this tangent since it's very quick for the script. So let's go and select the text and let's make a new script. As you can see, I've called it set text to current version, and because we're going to change a text, I'm also going to import the tmpro library. And then in the awake method, I'm going to get the UGUI text component and set the text to the current version plus the application's version. Application version returns a get-only value that, if we go back to Unity, you can see it right here in the project settings. It's this one right here. Let's see if it works. Yep, works. Perfect. By default, I'm also gonna add a couple of zeros in here, just like that, just to see how it fits. Yeah, it looks kind of hideous, but we're not gonna worry about that right now. Alright, so let's actually make the logic now to switch between this menu, the info menu, to the shop menu. So let's make a new button, and I'm just going to duplicate the switch language button. Perfect. And now we could just use some game object events. So if you grab the button real quick, we could just do plus, grab whatever game object, and do this. But that gives us very little control over what we are doing. So instead we make a function ourselves. So let's cancel all the events here. And let's grab the shop manager, since we are in the shop, and let's make a new component. And I'm gonna call it menu manager. In here, let's make a reference to two game objects, the info menu and the shop menu. Then, let's make a public void function called openInfoMenu. And in here, we want to close the current open menu and open the info menu. To close the currently open menu, let's just make a function that closes all menus. As you can see, I've just simply used the setActive function. Then in the open info menu, we just call close all menus and we open info menu. We also want a way to open back the shop menu though. Instead of making a public function that we call from a button, instead let's make it that if we try to open the same menu twice, we go back to the shop. So in our open info menu, we just check if info menu is active in a hierarchy. And that tells us whether the object is active or inactive. And if it is, so we have pressed the same button twice, we close the current menu and we open the shop. And for the sake of reusability, I'm going to use the close all menu functions again. Finally, we also return from the function because we don't want this bit of code to execute. Great, let's go to Unity now. Let's drag and drop all the references. Let's also get the info menu button and let's drop that function. Right now we are in the info menu. If I activate it, we go back to the shop. If I press it again, we go back to the info. Perfect. Now before we go any further, before we go and make any changes or add any other functions and menus, let's do something very smart. Let's go back to the script. Let's add an attribute called context menu. Context menu allows us to call certain functions within the editor. We just need to call the context menu attribute and give it a name. Usually I just use the same name of the function. Now let's go back to Unity. And now if we want to open or close the info menu, we can just select the shop manager. And in here with the 3 dots menu, we have our function. Pretty neat. If you think about it, all these functions that you have in here, like resetting the script or removing a component or copying the content, they're all context menu functions and they're all inherited from model behavior. What we have done is adding another function, another context menu, but it's custom made. We made this function. This is very handy and it's especially handy when dealing with UI. So now let's also add the context menu to the close all menu functions. Let's call it. And now we can work on our options menu. Before we do that though, let's make a new empty game object to get all the menus inside one parent. We have a top panel, we have a bot panel, so it's only logical that we also make a middle panel. So same process as before, empty game object, stretch it to all corners, then put all the stuff inside of it. Same thing for the options menu. In here I'm just gonna drag and drop the switch language button and the audio button. Alright, and this also looks extremely hideous, but again it doesn't matter right now. We can change the way buttons look at any given time, but we better touch the functionality only once, if we don't want to make a mess or repeat the same thing twice. Alright, so for the options menu, let's go in our script. Let's make a reference to the options menu. And we can just copy and paste the openInfoMenu function and change the values. Also very important, let's go in the close all menu functions and let's add the new menu that we made. Alright, so that's it. Let's go back to Unity. Let's drag the reference. And let's also make a new button duplicated from the info and add the new function. Let's see how it looks. Perfect. You can see how we go to the options menu and we go back to the shop if I press it again. So no worries. You can see that once you have made 2 menus, adding a third or a fourth or a fifth, it's very simple and easy. Now last thing I want to do is add a bit of a visual feedback. I want to change the text that is at the top right here and change it to whatever menu is in right now. So let's go in the menu manager. Let's add a reference to the text. And in each function, we just change the text to whatever menu is open. So in here, after we close all menus, we just say that the top panel text.text is equal to info. Let's do the same for the options menu. While for the shop, let's make a new function. Make sure it's private. And whenever we change the shop menu to set active true, let's just replace it with a new function. And in our new function, we set to active the shop menu, and we also change the top panel text to say shop. Like that. Perfect. Now let's go to Unity and let's add the new reference. And now if you go to the info menu, you can see that it changes the text. Oh, we can close the old menus. Let's go back to the info, back to the shop. All right. Let's see if it also works in Unity. Right now I'm in the shop, but if I go to info, I go to the new menu, and I also get the current version of the game set in here automatically. I can go to the options menu, I can change the language, change the audio, and if I press the same button again, I go back to the shop, and it all works nicely, and it doesn't mess up with the shop pages or anything. Perfect. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you've learned something new. If you have any doubts about the code or any suggestions about the next topic that you'd like to see, do tell me in the comments. If you like this content and you want more, please like and subscribe. There are a dozen or so episodes that I still have to make on this series, but I'd like to see your opinions on it. And in the next episode, we'll see how to make achievements in our game. Achievements are very popular and are present in basically any game nowadays. We'll see how to obtain an achievement, how to see if you have already gotten one, and display it using trophies. And once you've learned the basic logic behind it, you can make as many achievements as you want. So make sure to stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you then. See ya!